So if you're a reasonable human being, you don't want to spend thousands of dollars on a pair of headphones because that's ridiculous, right? So instead you are looking more at the reasonably priced options like the Sennheiser HD600 right here or the Sennheiser HD550. Both of these offer great value at the price tags that they come in at. So I wanted to do a comparison between these two. And if you watched a recent video I did where I compared the Head Audio D1 against the Focal Clear, I had a very obvious preference for one of those two. Go and watch that video if you haven't already. But with the HD600 and the HD550, it's actually rather challenging to pick a favorite. But that doesn't mean there aren't meaningful differences between these two, and so I'm going to go over those in this video. So, which one is right for you? Well, let's find out. All right, just a note as we get going here, the HD600's MSRP is $499, but it can regularly be found on sale for around $300, $350, that sort of thing. And the HD550 is a bit of a newer headphone, so this one is more commonly at around $350. So just make sure you're aware of the price variation that you might find with these. And also, sometimes there is region-specific pricing. So I'm just basing this off what the US pricing is, but you might find these headphones at different prices in different regions as well. Okay, so I feel that people have come to think about the HD600 as this flat, reference, neutral, plain water kind of headphone, and that because of this, it's rather boring. And maybe I'm responsible for some of this idea. But quite frankly, the people who find this headphone boring are wrong. Believe it or not, the HD600 actually does have some flair and some colorations to it. It has this sense of euphony and lushness while also having a bit of sweetness and richness to the sound, similar to the HD650 or HD6XX, just a little bit more clarity focused. It's a little bit brighter, but I find it to be more detailed and articulate at the same time. Now, moving over to the HD550, they're very similar for much of the response, especially the mid-range. But the HD550 is the one that's actually more neutral. And if I were looking for a perfectly flat reference kind of sound signature, I would actually choose the HD550 over the HD600. But there's more to talk about here. So first, let's get into the build, the design, and the comfort between the two. Obviously, the biggest difference is that the HD550 is in a 5 Series chassis and the HD600 is in a 6 Series chassis. And the difference here is not insignificant. For build quality, the HD600 is clearly better. It is the one that feels a bit more sturdy in the hand. It feels more robust. It feels like it's made of more high quality plastics. It is not quite as rickety feeling as the HD550. And this one, again, I don't love the chassis design of this. Also, just from a visual perspective, like the HD600 is a little bit more iconic for me. It has that sort of just classic Sennheiser look to it, whereas the HD5 series feels a little bit cheaper. The HD600 series also is well known for being rather durable and it holds up over time. Just make sure that when you are bending out the headband, that you don't do it with the plastic piece, but rather the arms that are metal. With a 5 series, you probably won't need to do that. Speaking of comfort, the HD600 has a bit more clamp force to it. It's a tighter feeling headphone on the head, whereas the HD550 and the 5 Series in general doesn't have as much of that clamp force going on, but you do notice the top a little bit more, and that's just because the top headband piece is a single band that goes just all the way across, whereas on the HD600 series, you get these two cushions on either side, making that top hotspot less of a noticeable thing. So it's not really that one is obviously more comfortable than the other. It just depends on the size and shape of your head. If you have a larger head, you may find the HD550 more comfortable. If you have a smaller head, you may find the HD600 more comfortable. But even for larger heads, you can get the HD600 to fit if you bend out the arms a little bit, and then it's fine. With the HD550, my only real complaint about the comfort is that I do wish the pads were just a little bit deeper, but there's an interesting little trick with this headphone. When you put it on your head, when I just wear it like this, my ear does just barely touch the inside of the baffle. But one cool thing is that I can also place the headphone forward a little bit and tuck my pinna, my ear, underneath the pad here, and it's sort of resting in between the underside of the pad and the baffle, and this does actually change the sound, and I'll show you guys what this looks like here in a moment. But if you're sensitive to your ear touching the inside of the baffle, the HD600 is probably going to be the better choice. And for both of them, the pads are removable and replaceable. Just make sure you're getting pads that are compatible with these, and Sennheiser does also provide this. One thing to keep in mind is that the cable connectors between these two are different. There's a single connector on the HD550. Looks like this here, sort of a locking mechanism for it. You can find aftermarket cables for that one. On the HD600, you do have the 2-pin style connector here that people love or hate. It is a proprietary system, but again, because these headphones are so ubiquitous, it's easy to find aftermarket ones here. So like right now I'm using this one from Deconi because it's this fun little modular system that they use, right? I can just sort of twist it and then take that off, but it does still have that rather awkward proprietary 2-pin style connector. Now for the drivability of the headphones, the HD600 has a higher impedance to it, which is around 300 ohms. The HD550 has a 150 ohm impedance, making it more versatile off of a wider range of equipment, but both of them should not be difficult to drive. Like this meme of like, you need to have this particular amplifier to unlock the full potential of either of these headphones, or the HD600 in particular. No. Most modern devices will be able to run these just fine. Now, let's get to the sound quality here. And as mentioned, the HD550 is the one that I think is even more neutral reference. Now, it doesn't mean it's perfect and flat across the board. There's a little bit of forwardness in the treble, particularly in the upper treble, and the rest of this is just a bit more linear with a bit better bass extension. That's really the main difference between the two. Both have exceptional mid-range. Both are timbrally wonderful. I think there's an argument for either one of them, but I actually kind of think that the HD600 is the one that's a little bit more fun. Yes, I said that. The HD600 is fun. And all of you haters who say the HD600 are boring, you are wrong. Let me go to the measurements now. So taking a look at how these two compare. So here you can see the graphs done on the B&K 5 and 2.8, and I'll show you guys the on-head data here in a second. So you'll notice that the HD600 rolls off more aggressively in the sub bass and in the lower bass, but it actually has more bass in the mid and upper bass and lower mids. So everything below like 400 hertz, between like 70 hertz and 400 hertz, there's actually more energy on the HD600. This gives it more of that lushness and richness that I talked about. Whereas the HD550 is better extended in the bass, it's got more sub bass to it, but the overall bass profile is a lot more flat. It's a lot more just plain old neutral across the board for the bass. It only really starts to roll off significantly below 30 hertz, and that's where it actually has quite a bit more energy than the HD600. So if you're looking for a well-extended but not bass boosted, not bloomy kind of sound, the HD550 would be the better choice. If you want that kind of richness and lushness and that sort of like audiophile thing, the HD600 is probably going to be a bit better. And the combination of that with some of the other slight colorations that the HD600 has does make for a very rich and almost sweet kind of character to it. And you can see that actually in the treble presentation, in sort of the mid and upper treble presentation. Now, for the mid-range and for the ear gain, they are very similar between the two of them. And I have to say, at first I thought, oh, the HD600 is going to be like this wonderful mid-range thing, and I'm going to prefer the HD600's mid-range and prefer the bass in the 550. But going back and forth, they are so close for the mid-range, and there are times with certain recordings where I prefer the mid-range on the HD550. Like, it's almost because there's less of that upper bass kind of crowding into the mid-range on the HD550 that it comes through with a bit more clarity overall. And this is the kind of thing that when I'm listening to my jazz recordings, like piano jazz and that sort of thing, it shines on the HD550. Where the HD600 is actually more forgiving for rock and metal, where a lot of the presence or substance of the music comes through more strongly as a result of that push in the low mids and upper bass. So while they're pretty similar for the mid-range, it is a little bit genre specific for which one works better, and both of them are exceptional for vocal timbre. Like vocal timbre on both of these, I kept going back and forth. I was like, damn, the HD550 is kind of incredible for this. Now, there was a moment where the HD600 did do better, and it was in the treble. The HD600 has what a friend of mine has described as some frosting up top, and that's a term that I liked so much that I feel I have to steal it every time I talk about the HD600's treble. And it's true for the 650 as well. Like, they both have this extra sense of crispness and airiness above 10 kilohertz, especially with pads that are mostly fresh, right? With some of the excess treble that the HD600 has, and again, this is with mostly fresh pads here. So with worn pads, the treble does get subdued, but with these pads, it's still quite present. I find that there's a bit more mid-treble to balance out that upper treble emphasis that both headphones tend to have. So for anybody who is not familiar, if you've heard other people talk about, how there's no treble on these, or the treble rolls off on the HD600, no, these people are misinformed. They should feel shame. The HD600 does not have treble that rolls off. People might have a preference for more treble or excess treble, But make no mistake about it, the HD6 series does not have treble that rolls off. It's not subdued or anything like that. In fact, it's elevated above 10 kilohertz. Now, we're not talking beyerdynamic levels of treble here. Like, if that's the kind of treble that you expect, these are more normal than that. But make no mistake about it, there is elevated upper treble on both of these headphones. Where the HD600 is a little bit more balanced, I find, is that it has a bit more mid-treble to kind of balance that out, whereas on the HD550, that upper treble kind of stands out a little bit more, and it makes that presentation a little bit more gritty. So it's almost like with the HD600, you have a little bit more upper bass and mid bass, and to balance that out, there's a little bit of that extra mid-treble and upper treble, right? That's sort of the frosting that somehow kind of works as a ballast for the bass, for the bloom that it otherwise has. And while you could make the argument that it would be better if it didn't have those treble features, at the same time, that's kind of what makes it special. It's kind of what makes it unique. And when I listen to music with it, it doesn't sound fatiguing to me. And that's ultimately what matters the most. Now, with the 550, it has a trick up its sleeve. And to show you guys this, I'm going to move over to the on-head results, the on-head measurements that we've done with in-ear microphones. And because we have our HRTF, so how our anatomy is impacting and filtering the sound, we can subtract that from the measurement to show exactly how we're hearing these products. For wideband, they are both very, very neutral, but not without a couple of quirks and a couple of flares. And again, this is where I am mostly just very impressed with the HD550. I remember really liking it in my review, but it's doing exceptionally well to the point where it's not at all obvious that the HD600 is a better headphone when looking at the measurement on my own head. As I've been saying throughout this video, the HD550 makes the HD600 look V-shaped. It's not. Neither of these are V-shaped. But I just had to say that. I thought that'd be funny to put in the video. But no, really, this is what we're talking about, where the HD600 just has a little bit more bloom in the bass. The rest of it is pretty darn similar between the two, and a couple of different features throughout the treble, with a little bit more mid-treble emphasis on the HD600 and a bit more upper treble emphasis on the HD550. Again, there's not that much difference between the two. Now, I wanted to show you a little trick with the HD550, and remember how I said that the main thing that I noticed with the treble on the HD550 is there's a bit of grittiness to that upper treble? Well, if you tuck your ear into the pad, in between the baffle and the pad, and kind of move the headphone forward a little bit on your head so that the backside of your pinna is flush against the backside of the headphone, this kills the upper treble. And it takes away that kind of edge to the certain tones with it. So what does this sound like? Well, for some people, you're going to want a bit more of that extra upper treble because it kind of draws an outline around certain instrument tones that you might hear. It tends to embellish the finer little edges of tones. But if you find that to be distracting or, again, not neutral enough for you, if there's too much frosting, let's just say, then you can position the headphone more forward onto your head. And this does reduce that upper treble, shimmery, airy stuff if people find that to be too much. It also seems to have a little bit of an effect in the ear gain around 2.6 kilohertz, and it makes the ear gain sound a little bit less forward. It's a bit more relaxed and a bit more forgiving as a result. And I gotta say, when I was doing this testing back and forth, I did find that I could notice this. Like, I found with rock and heavy metal tracks, this was an easier time pushing the headphone forward a little bit on my head. So if we compare that condition to the HD600, you'll notice there's a stronger difference here throughout the treble. So I won't say it's so different that it's like having two different sound signatures, but it's different enough where it's worth trying and playing around with and seeing which kind of presentation you prefer. Keep in mind that if you do that, if you have like really big ears, that might be a bit of a challenge, and you will definitely feel the backside of the cup here, like the baffle and the pad and that kind of stuff. But I just found this interesting, and it does make this headphone maybe a little bit more versatile as a result. So that's how these two compare. And as I've been saying throughout this video, I really can't pick a favorite. I'm struggling. For my jazz music and music that really benefits from a more clarity-focused presentation, the 550 is the one that I'm going to go with. For music like rock and metal and anything where I might want to add a little bit of richness and sweetness to it, the HD600 is the one that I would go to. But it's not like the HD600 was a clear winner for vocal timbre or anything like that. They're both incredibly good for that. If the HD550 had better build and it looked a little bit more fancy and more premium, I mentioned this in one of my other reviews, nobody would complain if this were sold at $500 or $600. Like, again, with better build and maybe if it looked fancier, a little bit more premium. So if the sound quality is the most important thing to you and you're not chasing visual flair or brand stories or anything like that, you can't really go wrong with either of these two headphones. And that's the end of it. So when it comes to my rankings, I think I originally had the HD600 ranked a little bit higher than the HD550, but I might bump the HD550 up just upon doing this comparison, because that tucking the ear back into the cups and then moving the whole headphone a little bit forward does change things a little bit with how I rate the treble performance. So I do have the HD600 slightly ahead at a 6.2, whereas the HD550 is at a 6, but they are basically neck and neck. If you are interested in additional rankings to see how others have rated both of these headphones, you'll find that linked in the description. That's up on headphones.com. And as always, if you found anything here interesting or valuable, consider checking out headphones.com the next time you're in the market for a new pair of headphones or related audio equipment. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Bye for now.